Hello, hello. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Mercantile Library, and welcome to really what is the final Urban Consulate Salon of the year 2021. Woohoo! I love that energy. That's good end of year energy. Love it so much. For those of you who are tuning in at home, welcome. As per usual, you are part of our community, and so we welcome you as if you were here with us and us with you. So, am I looking here? I feel like am I looking right there? Good. I want to be sure I'm looking in the right place. Hello, everybody. So to close the year, we are exploring a really important question, and that is, as we are working to build equitable cities, equitable communities, at the root of that is self-care and community care. So how are we practicing self-care and community care? How do we know what it looks like when it shows up? And how can we foster and cultivate that? And we've got two incredible, inimitable people, humans, joining us as thought partners in that conversation tonight. But first, so we are here to celebrate some milestones. And you know, with all good things, there is transition, and with all good things, there is change. And I think we can do this in front of everybody. We want to give some special gratitude to a very special person. And that person is a tremendous human being, an amazing person, a soul sister, a spiritual guide, Megan Trishler. Come on up, Meg.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yes.
Megan Trishler has been not just a co-host of Urban Consulate, but in fact, Meg has been one of the progenitors that helped bring Urban Consulate here many years ago, toiling behind the scenes. And over some time, our team has gotten to know you, and to know Meg is to love Meg immediately. So we're gonna love on you right now and do what you love best, which is like put the spotlight on you, lots of eyeballs, you know, the stuff you love. For those of you who know Megan, you know it's just the opposite. Like this is not something she loves at all. But it's fitting because you've been such a part of our consulate story, but a Cincinnati story, a human story, and a beautiful story. So real quick, when I first met Meg, I didn't know a thing about why she was so special, but I felt why she was so special immediately. And I asked her, the first time we met, I said, you know what? You weren't at People's Liberty. What would you be doing? And I had a hunch, but I was like, nah, let me ask her. She said, you know, I think I might have a calling. I think I might have a calling to be a spiritual leader. And I was like, I knew it. I was like, tell me more. And so some years later, Megan called the team together and said, guys, I have a calling. And what we later learned is that she was in the process of being ordained. Not only that, but she had been vetted, put through the ringer at UCC to become head pastor there. And we were like, you know what an incredible way. Talk about self-care as following your calling, and you've done that. And I want to share some words that your consulate family has prepared for you, just to make it more fun for you, but also for us to show us how much we love you, how much we're going to miss working with you. So this quote comes from Claire Nelson, who many of you will know is the co-founder of Urban Consulate National. And here's what she has to say. What people might not recognize about Meg is that for over a year before Urban Consulate Cincinnati hosted its first gathering in November 2019, she was working with Great Care behind the scenes to introduce people who might never have met without her. She drove to Detroit twice to listen to consulate talks, and then she hosted Tune Day, who's Claire's husband, and Claire, then Chase Cantrell, our counterpart in Detroit, and in Cincinnati, where she set up coffees, and you set up lunches and site visits all around the city, and then she threaded the needle to connect with G, who then connected with me, Naima, and then JP and Yemi, right? And you even planted the seeds that would reconnect Eileen Cooper-Reed and Dr. Zena Jacques, right? Decades apart, right? So this was all on top of her regular work, which is truly embodying the principles of people first. The small is good, and focus on critical connections over critical mass. This is Meg. Isn't this her? This is you. I will never forget, and I will always be grateful for Meg for growing and deepening our consulate family. And I will never forget when she shared a passage from The Final Word is Love by Dorothy Day. And I think that it's about all the time. It's about how the Catholic worker movement started, beginning with the words. We were just sitting here, there talking. And it ends with, we have all known the long loneliness. And we have learned that the only solution is love. And that love comes with community. It all happened while we sat there talking, and it is still going on. So, that's from Claire. One more thing.
Thank you, Claire.
Orlando Bailey is our urban consulate co-host and counterpart out of Detroit, and he has this to say about you. There are billions, you hear me? Billions of people in the world. And for a person to stop and choose to see you, your worth, and your dreams is nothing short of an amazing present. Meg, you somehow manage to make every single person you encounter feel seen, feel heard, and if they are around you long enough, feel loved. You not only see the worth in everyone, but you intentionally add value to that worth. You have been such a sweet treasure to so many people. Thank you for making intentional investments in the consulate, in cities, and in me. I pray you'll be an everyday recipient of God's choice blessings. That's from Orlando. We love you so much, Meg. And in addition to many other things to come, you know, big party, the things you love, we want to present you with a little token of our love tonight. Just a little. Can the consulate family come up to the, if you can spare a sec, we present you with these flowers because we love you and thank you.
Thank you. You got embarrassed. Thanks so much. Hey, I'm gonna give you that back.
Thank you, lady. And we know this is like, Meg is not going anywhere. She's just pastoring down the street. Like, come on now. This is a celebration of a beautiful, somebody following their calling. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. Now I would like to welcome our guests to the stage. We have LaShonda Sugg and Crystal Grace. So that was a biggie. And I feel like with two human-centered, heart-centered people, you felt the love there. And I know you both know Meg in different ways and getting to know her, but to know Meg is to love Meg. So thank you for letting us hold that space. Also want to hold space, and it's going to feel very inelegant, but given the timing of the devastating loss to our neighbors to the south in Kentucky, want to send consulate thoughts, heartfelt prayers to all of those who are grieving loss during this time. And as the relief efforts, recovery efforts continue, we hope that those who need, that they receive exactly what they need. So I want to hold space for that. Oh, was that my cell phone? Yeah, I'll just leave that there. And just want to ground us a little bit in space and time, because of course we are in the month of December. Thank you. The month of December means many things for many people, but we often associate December with rebirth, renewal, going inward, finding that inner light, keeping it ablaze and alit in spite of the cold weather, wherever we are. And so what more fitting time than to gather and talk about the inner, to talk about the tending, the care, and the reflection that comes during this time. With us tonight, we're going to be talking about self-care and community care and what that looks like. And I'm so excited to welcome Crystal Grace. Crystal Grace is owner and esthetician of Grace and Grit, a spa that exists to serve and build into others. Crystal believes that the care of self should be affordable and never viewed as a luxury. Crystal and her team embody what it means to serve others and to lead by example through their own self-care. Crystal is also owner of Cream and Sugar Coffee House, the place to connect in the community in Evanston. Welcome, Crystal. Also with us tonight is LaShonda Sugg. LaShonda is the CEO and founder of Labors of Love Counseling and Consulting. LaShonda is a translator and a healer who journeys alongside people who wish to make sustainable change in their lives by helping them explore their needs, their barriers, and resilience. A native of Detroit, our Detroit audience out there will be very excited about that. LaShonda creates safe spaces for exploration, healing, and growth. She brings her full self to her healing work, bringing wisdom, faith, and humor to everyone who has the pleasure of working with her and walking with her. Put simply, LaShonda leaves people and places better than she finds them. Welcome, LaShonda.
Thank you.
So we're going to start in a pretty simple place, right? And that is going to be real, like, connected to the topic, too, very meta. What have you done today to care for yourself? And if you haven't, what does self-care typically look like for you?
Paper, rock, scissors. You got it.
So today, I was very intentional about finding quiet time, just in preparation for this moment. Also, I spent time in my prayer closet just to connect with God and what He would want me to say. But typically, my happy space of self-care is nature. That's where I find all the things of God just flood me when I'm in nature. So I love hiking. I love just spending time outdoors, going on amazing trips like to Montana and just seeing just amazing things that God has created. That's where I find my self-care. I'm very connected. I'm so close to like facials and massages, what people usually think of as self-care. So it's really hard for me to kind of just be in that moment instead of I'm constantly studying people's hands and wondering what they're doing and how they're doing certain things. So I typically am more at peace when I'm out of the setting that I actually serve in.
That's beautiful. We're going to have to talk about your favorite hiking spots locally later.
Yes.
LaShonda?
So, I thought about my breath. Self-care. Literally was like, hey, air's coming in, air's going out, right? That's self-care. Self-care was noticing that I had this hole in my tights and deciding that, okay, and what they gonna say, right? That's self-care. It's choosing to live in the moment every day. Now, today I was able to connect with some very significant people in my life. So community is self-care. This community, it was 3 separate telephone calls, Zoom calls, and each of the calls I got to just show up and be me. So self-care is finding community where You just be, and people get it, right? For me, that fills me. Self-care was reminding myself that I needed to drink water, even when wine was present. You know, like self-care is the choices that we come to, but I chose my body and hydration in that moment. So for me, self-care looks different every day because every day brings with it something different, but the ultimate self-care is being present to the moment.
Thank you. So this conversation to me has like the kind of dichotomy that just gets me really excited, right? Because self-care is definitely, it's a personal thing, right? But then we're also talking about what happens when you expand that self-care into caregiving, right? And so we're going to start from like an inside-out approach with how we navigate this conversation. So I want to start with this concept. And, you know, here we are sitting here, three women who identify as black women, standing on the shoulders of giants, one of those giants being Audre Lorde, American writer, who declared that self-care is not an indulgence, it is an act of political warfare. And you read that and you're like, wait, hold on, sis, war? So I want to talk for a second. LaShonda, when we think about the conditions of self-care, being a woman of color, being a woman with intersectional experience with the oppressive world, right? What does that mean to you?
So when I read Audre Lorde's quote, political warfare, we typically think about war being external. But when we take care of ourselves, when I take care of myself, it's a war within. Because I'm fighting the very systems that have told me I don't get to do that. So what courses through my blood ancestrally is that I am here for labor. I am here to bring forth those who will labor. I am here to be extracted from at the expense of myself. When I understand that that is ancestrally what shows up in my body, the war I fight to take care of myself ain't got nothing to do with y'all. It has to do with me. It has to do with understanding the systems that have nurtured my growing in this culture. It has to do with me then taking a stand to say, I don't have to do what has always been done. When I don't do that, it is disrespectful to my ancestors who didn't have a choice. So the warfare for me is recognizing that my wholeness and healing doesn't just reach forward to my children and my children's children and children's children's children, but it reaches backwards, right? It reaches back to those who didn't get the option to say, I'm not gonna answer that phone call. I'm not gonna no. They didn't get to say no, y'all. No was not an option. No came at the expense of their lives, their livelihood. So when I'm sitting here and I got a system telling me I got to grind till I die, no thank you. I shall pass, right? And so not only does that warfare get waged internally, but what it helps is my children see me rest. I take rest from them too. Some people who know me intimately here, I rest, but they see it. They have to see another way. I demonstrate rest and self-care with my clients. Look, if I got to go to the bathroom in the middle of the session, I know the system says hold it, but I say my body, you want it to continue to function, you want me to be present with you, let's take a bio break. Right? So demonstrating that rest and self-tending is not just possible, but it is necessary. That's the war. And I fight it more inside of me than I do with other people. Because believe it or not, people ain't really out there trying to tell me what to do. They just assume I'm gonna follow status quo. So once you actually start thinking about, are people actually telling you you can't do that? Or are you so subscribed to the systems that you perceive that they are? Because what I found is people don't be up in my business like that. They let me do me. But because I am so attached to the systems that tell me I can't, then I find myself going, oh, they're not going to let me do that, or that's not. Then I realize they don't get to make that judgment. So that's the warfare. That's how I see it.
Thank you. You just brought that from conceptual to tangible real fast. I mean, really, did you have anything to build on from there, Crystal?
Well, just like she was saying, what we demonstrate to our children, one of the things that I stress with my guests at the spa is that we will never tell our children to grow up, put everybody before them, not do the things that feed into them, work hard, never do anything for yourself, but that's what we demonstrate to them. But we want something different from them, but we demonstrate that very thing to them, and that's why the cycle just continues and continues, because we're not showing them the example of what rest and care looks like.
We're going to expand this a little deeper into like user manual type tactical stuff, right? When you think of self-care modalities, right? Rest is one. Like, go sit down somewhere. What was that one meme? It's like, how your grandma used to say, you go sit down somewhere. You can tell ourselves that, rest. But what are some other self-care modalities, Crystal, that you draw on that centers not just yourself, but your clients, your family, and your friends? How does that show up?
So, you know, it's a full conversation at the spa of how we take care of ourselves, and we surround ourselves with other healers. So, you know, it's not just about skincare, it's not just about massage, but it's also about using things like Reiki. I use Reiki for myself, and that's what is energy work. It helps unblock any type of blocking creativity for me. And if you really have someone that is gifted in the area of Reiki, it's also a very spiritual connection you experience during that time. Also, you know, I have my nutritionist who I use, and I share these people with our guests. We also have acupuncture. That's my first line of healing. Instead of going to the doctor, my first line of healing is an acupuncturist. And then I have my herbalist. So we have a whole community of healers that not only that we use, but we share with our guests for their own healing.
So you both touched on something really important. Self-care in and of itself is a decision.
Yes.
Part of that decision is also surrounding yourself with folk that will let you care for yourself.
Absolutely.
And part of that is, you know, you draw on a whole community of healers. Part of that for you, LaShawn, is like, look, people let me do me, right? But it's also a choice for who you put in your orbit who lets you do that.
Or you got to train them.
Say more.
I didn't find people who indulged my self-care. I did self-care. The option to stay in community with me is theirs. So some of us will be like, well, ain't nobody. We teach people how to treat us by how we treat ourselves. So, example I always use, I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade, though we were not Catholic. I think my Detroit peeps would understand that, right? My husband never stepped foot into a Catholic church, but we went to a wedding together. And sit up, stand up, sit down. You know, there's like call and response. And he is like, where's the teleprompter? And I'm like, what teleprompter? It's like, how do you know what to do? But you know what? He didn't miss a beat. He might not have said what he was supposed to say, but he wasn't sitting when it was time to sit. Why? Because the people around him was standing up. So he like, oh, it's time to stand, right? He learned what to do because the environment, you do what you see doing, what happens, right? So when I've learned is when people come into community with me, I'm very transparent about certain things. And so the choice to be in community and connection with me is always someone's, but this is what is required of me. And we understand this tangibly. You understand it at work. That's why you only wear blue jeans on Friday. Right? You understand that there are these rules. Some are very explicit, some are implicit, and they govern like how you dress and how you talk. And those of us, black bodies and bodies of culture, that code switching thing, we got it down into the very essence of our DNA. Nobody had to teach us that. The system teaches us how to treat it. We get to teach people how to treat us. And I think the very nature of self-care that I just want to say is it's all about the five senses. If you're not doing something that incorporates every five of your senses to care for yourself, you can find the gaps that way, right? Have you smelled something pleasant today? If not, that's a small moment of self-care you can give yourself, right? Did you drink something refreshing today? Did you listen to a sound that was soothing to you? Have you moved your body? So we can go as systemic as Reiki, acupuncture, massage. We can talk about therapy. We can do all of those things. And we can just talk about, have I touched a fabric that felt good to me today? So we all have access to self-care. No matter how much money or time we think we don't have, we have access to that. And as we start to nurture that in our lives, people not only will begin to respect what we're doing for us, but then they go like, I want some of that. Where can I find that? So self-care is contagious as well.
So I'm going to take it back a little bit, because you said something that when I started doing the research about generational trauma, you know, it blew my mind away. And there is this ever expanding body of research that documents and traces generational trauma and its impact on our bodies. So can you speak a little bit to where, you know, there are so many peoples who've experienced mass extermination, oppression, Jewish people, Black people, Asian, you know, so how does one heal intergenerational trauma that's not even yours? Okay, that's a horrible way to put it.
I was like, man, woman, that's a large question. So with the 20 days we have left.
Yeah, exactly. The 20-day countdown starts now.
So one, I think part of it is just recognizing that there is a such thing as intergenerational trauma. Why that's important, being a trauma specializing therapist, people come and they say, I'm experiencing this symptom. And we try to trace back what has happened in their day. So if you're crabby at the end of the day, you might go like, what happened today that caused me to be crabby right now, right? What happened this week? So we're looking for the thing that we can hang the hat on. This is why I'm experiencing this. Without the understanding that we carry things intergenerationally, we hit a wall because we can't find the thing that is causing us to have this experience. So then the narrative is very often, there's something wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with us, right? When we live throughout life and we're interacting with our environments, our genes in our GENES, they express themselves in a certain way. As we begin to adapt to what the world brings us, the expression of our genes may change. Certain ones might turn on, certain ones might turn off, and we pass that down genetically to our children. And then how they're experiencing life. And so many of us are numerous generations into the transmission of how to survive. Right? I don't know that my dad really liked pig feet and chitlins like that. He ate them. I don't know that he had this proclivity and taste for it. He ate them. But when you trace back that it was only 2.5 to 3 generations before my father was born, that was the only access of meal he had, my ancestors had, his taste buds began to shift to allow, because what was the other option? Don't eat, right? So when we start to think about what we do and what we don't do, how we engage with the world, it is very helpful to recognize that some of the things that show up and come out of us, they didn't start with us. Once we begin to recognize that, part of the healing process is, what do I have access to right now that they didn't? I don't have to do that thing. I don't have to say that thing. I have access to something that they didn't have. So part of the generational healing becomes us recognizing that just because it got passed down to us doesn't mean we have to carry it forward. One of my favorite quotes in the world is Father Richard Rohr, who said, trauma or pain that is not transformed is transmitted. And when we are not transforming these things, it's not just our offspring we're passing it down to, but we're transmitting it in our personalized relationships, people we walk past, people we work with. So part of it is just recognizing. Sometimes we get stuck, well, how do I heal it? Just start. When you feel sick, most people's first thought is, not how do I heal it, it's what is it? Oh God, is it COVID? Right? We can't blink without thinking it's an extra symptom of COVID, right? So then we got to go the rule out. Well, what is it not? Healing from generational trauma can serve in the same way. What is this? And more importantly, whose is it?
Okay. So my instinct is like, let's go real deep, and we are going to go deeper, but in a different way. Because when you and I were talking about self-care months and months ago, you said, Naima, self-care is soul care. I was like, yeah, I feel that. That resonates with me. Can you say more about what that means to you, soul care?
So, soul care is just a deeper level than what we exist on a daily basis. You know, and for me, the only time to really tap into that is when, I'm sorry.
Oh, you know what? There you go.
Okay. So soul care for me is it's just on a deeper level of our everyday existence, and I'm able to tap into that when my soul is at rest, and that's at quiet, that's peace, and it's a quieter peace that is just not like being still, but it's a deeper level, and that's where your light is, where your light shines, that thing that is where people are drawn to you. It's where your purpose lies, is where you hear God's voice, is where you are asking those questions of why am I created, what am I here for? And it's getting those answers too. And so tapping into that space, I think a lot of us don't have that opportunity because we're just so busy with our everyday lives, and we're just functioning, and we're just moving about, and we're just outputting, but we're not allowing God to quiet us. And when you get to that space, and God has blessed Grace and Grit to where many people have gotten to that space. It's a level of rest that's beyond just our normal rest. And that's where we discover so much about what He has for us on this earth, and what we are created to do, and how we're to serve others, and how we show up, and how we love. And Grace and Grit, basically, all we do is show the love of God through touch. Yeah.
So this is unscripted, but I have to ask, because of course we have conversations about building better cities. And, right or wrong, for better or for worse, we associate, cities with an urban, sort of densely populated setting. We can hear the sound of the horns honking outside, people in a rush trying to get to where they want to go. So when you're in an urban setting with lots of life around you, how do you find that quiet? Is the sound of the city, does that count as a meditative quiet? You know what I mean? Like, for those of us who do live in cities, is there a difference between the quiet of like the mountains, out in Montana, or, Elm and 5th Street, right? Is there a distinction? Is there calm and rest to be had in a city setting?
It's an internal calm and rest. It really doesn't have much to do with the external factors. It's a calming, it's connecting with your Creator. So it's deeper than just your surroundings. It's an inner space. It's that healing that you allow your body to have and your soul to have, and it's that yearning that you have for more. It's different things for different people. It's not a recipe for everybody to follow, but just for me, it came at a time of trauma that I had experienced, and that trauma birthed my purpose, and it's where I serve from. It's where I serve. It's where my light is. It's what attracts people to me.
From it.
It's from the soul.
Lashonda, did you have something?
Well, I was just thinking, sometimes we get drowned. the noise drowns us out, that there are things that we don't hear. Can you hear the birds chirping when you on Fifth and Elm? They didn't stop. And it's not that they're necessarily quieter than the cars, but we can get finely tuned to danger. So much so, that's being in a space of trauma responsiveness, that the stillness that Crystal is talking about and that I experience, sometimes I can experience it while things are going on, but it's hearing what we don't hear. That is also, that's that mindfulness, that's being present. Can I feel the wind blowing? And it's cold. I'd rather be somewhere, Aruba preferably, in case y'all sitting people on vacations. But can I have gratitude for the brisk wind, right? So part of self-care is leaning into gratitude. We don't have to prompt ourselves to think about the challenges and the things that are going wrong, but we have to take intentional time to say what's going right. What can I be grateful for in this moment? And the fullness of gratitude means that experiencing the things that are going right doesn't eliminate the things that are not, but it gives you a full holistic picture of what your present actually is, right? It doesn't mean that we have rose-tinted glasses, but it simply means that I can see the fullness right in front of me, and that can be an act of self-care. So that's what came up for me.
Thank you. I want to, this conversation, Meg, we needed more time. This conversation is filling my cup in such a big way. Sociologist Karen Chen has just released this book, y'all, and it's called, I think, Work, Pray, Code. And one of the ideas coming out of the book is that, like, work has become the new religion of America. And in the sense that decades ago, people sought faith traditions to affirm their purpose in life. Crystal, you talked about your purpose is rooted in healing a trauma, right? People used to find that in their churches or community centers. Nowadays, it's like my value, my identity, my worth, my whole purpose in life is to work. And so the question is, from a collective standpoint, if self-care is contagious, what do we need to do to shift the religion, like the very, very core essence that guides everything we do? The source code of how we live our lives is work. What was the most critical enabler to reverse that mindset?
So I haven't read her research, and she's probably real right, but my question would be, is it work, or is it what work brings? So when people go to work, they find relationship. They find connection. They find people going, here is a tangible reward for what you've accomplished. They find deadlines. Y'all find that in the church? No. And as a person of faith, I'm talking crap as a person who's in it, right? So what I find is that people were searching for something that the church wasn't giving, right? And because people had so intimately connected faith and church specifically, that they went for something that could give them that sense of accomplishment, sense of community, sense of you can show up as you are and we'll train you. See, when you go to work and you get a job, they say, here's on-the-job training. But sometimes you step into churches and they say, you need to be right all together, right? And so he didn't uncross his leg. He felt that, right? So part of it is, yes, I think we have moved into a work culture, but I think we have to ask more questions. What is it about work that's fulfilling? And most people ain't saying the work. They go, my coworkers, the people we serve, I get to contribute and give back. And so I think if we want to help people prioritize their self-care and move back to to faith, then the traditions that have been surrounding faith have to be evaluated. Because even in how we ask the question, well, what's wrong with people? Let's ask a different question, right? So we're centering around what do people have to do to come back? Maybe, but where's the halfway mark? Where's somewhere meeting in the middle? And I think when we ask uncritical questions like that, it lends to other systems that are oppressive. When we go, what's wrong with those people? Instead of, how is their response normal for abnormal situations? We ask it when it comes to oppression, but we don't continue those same kind of questioning in other spaces, and I think that's really important. And that's not all the answer, but it was the first one that came up.
Did you have anything to add to that?
I think people are wanting to, are not fulfilled by work anymore. I think that has run its course. And we see that now with the shortage in our workforce. And most of it is because it's no longer fulfilling. That's not what people want to go back to. They want to tap into their purpose. I hear that conversation on a daily basis, that that's not the space that fills them anymore, and they're looking for a deeper connection. They want purpose. They want to know why they were created, and that's how they want to show up, even if it's a loss of income. That no longer seems to be priority anymore. It's more of, why am I here? What can I do, and how can I contribute? Yeah.
I'm going to stick with you because I'm doing all the shameless plugs today because I'm telling you, if you have not been to for our friends who are joining us here and virtually who live in Cincinnati, and you have not been to Grace and Grit, get you to Grace and Grit right now if you can get in. I'm just saying, schedule's booked. But it's an incredible place. I was recently there as a proud client, and I'm sitting in the lobby and I'm reading this book, and in the book, I'm drawn to it because it talks about ailments of the physical body, and then it links it to emotional causes. And I'm like, wow, this is a whole paradigm drawing very highly specific emotional events to an ailment at a very level, like specific level to the body. And so can you speak about how that book has helped inform your work, knowing that physical manifestations of pain are really more like metaphysical manifestations of pain? Can you speak to that?
The book by Louise Hayes, How to Heal the Body.
Louise Hayes, How to Heal the Body. Okay.
Yes, and it talks about how certain diseases that manifest themselves in the body is connected to some type of emotional trauma. And that's definitely the mindset that I'm under, that these illnesses and diseases that are in our body are not just from our environment, but also from an emotional standpoint. I have had my own physical ailments that I think were manifest from trauma, and I believe we serve women with cancer at our spa, and there's so much grief and childhood trauma and unforgiveness that we carry along in this world, and just to think that that does not manifest in our body as we carry it, and we have so much heart disease and we have tumors. All of these things are from emotional trauma that we have buried and we carry, and we don't have a space to release it. So it manifests into certain illnesses, and we're just such a society that we just rely on our medical doctors and medicines to heal everything, but there are ways to heal the body outside of medicine, and Louise Hayes connects like the affirmations that we can say over our bodies to heal that trauma that we are experiencing. So
it's a beautiful, incredible way to think about healing, right? And you're touching on a point which is making me want to connect some of the dots, right? Because when we think about traditional Western medicine, right? Like there are reasons why, and we have to admit, some of the progress and leaps we've made in medical science was built on the backs of, experimentation on especially black women in the gynecological field, experimentation on black men against their will. And so we'll hold space for that. And yet there are benefits to Western medicine. And one example of like the endemic racism is the APA, American Psychiatric Association, recently, like back in January of this year. They released a stunning statement. They were like, look, we've been racist since our inception. Here's how we did it, and here's how we're gonna undo it. And so the victimization, the stigmatization, the lies that were told about black people, black indigenous people of color, that helped justify our oppression started with that body of folk. And so the question is, how do we navigate a Western medical system that was literally never built for us, that literally was built on our backs and with our blood? How do we navigate that space?
We at each other cautiously. I always say what comes out of a person makes complete sense when you understand what went into them. And as I hear you talking, Crystal, about the manifestation of disease, that is still an attempt to get out. Mm-hmm. And so what the APA did is it began to pathologize the very normal response to abnormal situations. And so that's what diagnosis often does, particularly in psychology, therapy, sociology, and things like that. And so, I'll speak about this from a therapy standpoint. What I think it translates into medicine too is, first, I have to hold space to understand why people don't want to use therapy. I get it. That's real. And if we can't acknowledge that, right? And so people are frequently talking about the stigma, particularly in the Black community around therapy. And I'm like, wouldn't you? Right? If you know history, then I understand that. So when it comes to navigating the system, the first is we got to talk about it out loud. This system wasn't built for us, but this country wasn't either. Yet here we are. Right? So being able to move into places that were intended for our demise and say not so is what we do. It's who we are. And I think this is not different. We cautiously move in, understanding that we have to navigate it with caution, but I'm gonna come back to it. It's not our job to say, how do we navigate it? It's the clinician's job to say, you know this racist, right? So what you gonna do, clinician? So that's my work, clinician to clinician, particularly white body clinicians. Yeah, let's have this talk, right? So I don't believe that the weight and responsibility of navigating this system should rest solely on the backs and the shoulders of those participating in the services, no more than I think people need to make sure police are not afraid. Right? There is a responsibility that is held by a professional to say, do no harm. We take an ethical oath. And so, yes, as participants in therapy, Western medicine, and these things, we have to be cautious. But I think having these conversations from a therapy standpoint, I advocate for therapy, but you need to interview that therapist. And you need to say, I come in this body. What you got for me? You can just leave it right there. So what's that like, right? When we go feeling empowered with our doctors, our medical professionals, to say, before you give me a diagnosis and hand me a prescription, let's have this conversation. What is your differential diagnosis? And have you taken into consideration my race and my ethnicity in that diagnosis? Let's have that conversation with your 7 minutes you get with me, right? And so I think there is an empowered stance that we can take as we navigate these systems that were not built or intended for us, to say we are aware. I think one of the things before is those experimentations, they weren't aware. They were given a narrative that something was happening that wasn't happening. Now that we're aware of that, I think we come in and we have to be very bold and empowered to say, let's have this conversation. And that doesn't do all of it, but I definitely think it's a start.
So we're going to take it back to community care, and we're going to hit on an issue that is very relevant for our time, and depending on which lens you look at it from, it could be you taking care for the greater good or you taking care for yourself. And I want to talk about masking. So this to me is just completely emblematic of our conversation today, community care. And Adrienne Maree Brown, also from the D, Black activist, writer, she wrote a quote on her blog that speaks to a really essential question around masking and our responsibility to those who choose not to mask. And I want to read that question for you, Crystal, and see what you think about it. She asks, What is the distance at which I can love those who choose individual freedom over collective care in the short term at the cost of a future? So in other words, this question is like, how do we reconcile with folk who hold dear to like that, I'm gonna do me. What is our responsibility to them?
I think our responsibility is just to walk in our truth and show our light. You know, we all are on this journey at some point. At one point, I was at that same space of that person who is masking. So we all get to a certain place at a certain time. So it's really not my place to kind of look back at someone's journey and criticize them for where they are, because I've been there. I didn't have it all together. I still don't have it all together, but it's a process. We all going to get there, you know. Some might go a little easier than others, but my goal is to inform people we're in this for the long game, you know, and that's what self-care provides. It's to prepare you for the long game, and it's good stewardship over the one temple that we have been given. So masking and, you know, wanting it all right now and having everything might serve you in this season, but at some point you're going to have to be true to who you are created to be, and you're going to have to submit to that process.
Stewardship over the one temple.
It's good stewardship. That's all it is.
You know what's so funny? I'm asking you this question, sitting, sure enough, less than 6 feet away from me. So the irony is not lost on me. I'm asking a question about community care and masking, unmasked. Okay.
It took me a long time to realize we've been physically wearing masks. I just want to share that. I was like, masking our feelings.
Yeah.
And then you were talking, I was like, oh no, okay, mask. I might have been by myself, but I was like, this is a really deep, okay. Thank you for bringing me home, because I was just like,
That's on me.
physically wearing masks. Nope. I'm
Did you have anything to add to that though, LaShonda?
Well, now that I came off the masking, we are animals. Sorry if I'm the first person to tell you that. We are animals. We mammals. Doing something that goes against our survival is counterintuitive to being an animal. So when someone does something that is counterintuitive to survival, it begs more questions. It's deeper than that. And I think there have been some surface level conversations or judgments really about people who do and people who don't wear masks. And again, it's all about the questions we ask. What would cause a person to do something that is obviously counterintuitive to their survival? That's when we get to it. And in a system that has proven time and time again that it don't care about your life, but all of a sudden it wants you to care about the life of the whole, I think that's deep. I wear a mask, but it's not lost upon me. And so I think that there are deeper conversations to be had, and that the people who are doing things counterintuitive to their survival have found that a survival of something else is more important. And so if we look at it from that lens, then the judgment we make at the person who's not wearing a mask changes to a curiosity. And we get much further with curiosities than we do with judgments, because you have no idea what is happening inside the body of that person, let alone their family and their house and their job. And so, yeah, we got to ask better questions. We have to get curious with a root in compassion. And when we start having those conversations, we find that they might actually realize they're part of a community that actually cares. Now they want to put on a mask, because someone has demonstrated to me that I am a part of them. But if you don't feel a part of nothing, what you protecting? We're talking long term, but when people don't see that they have anything that goes past tomorrow, for what? That's where collective community care comes in, because when I look at you with compassion and curiosity, and I genuinely care about you, all of a sudden you realize that we are connected. You can't just tell somebody we in this together when everything in their life circumstances have taught them otherwise. But that conversation, that one moment, that look in the eye, the smile, even underneath your mask, can begin to help them feel, oh wait, maybe I'm not separate from them. Maybe I want to be here tomorrow to have that look again. Maybe I should do something that aids my survival.
What else is there? Like, this has just been a master class. Like, we had Romel here earlier giving us a master class of music, and from both of you, we're getting a master class in compassion, a master class in inclusion. I mean, this is, whew. So, look, look, even the questions written down on the page can't help me. I have to resituate.
I tried to tell you.
Well, okay, so no, let me just pause. See, what LaShonda's talking about is that she said, don't even give me the questions because I'm just going to show up. And who shows up? It's not me. It's the Creator. It's God. I was like, yes. And then Crystal said the same thing. She said, I'm just a vessel. You know, I listen and whatever comes through me is not through me. And I'm like, oh, no, you gotta sell yourself a little short there. But I just want to say that both of you just resonate at that core of knowing that, you know, being here and sharing your knowledge is also like transmitting inspiration from the divine. And so let's just name that, which is a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. So as we land this beautiful plane of community care and begin to open it up to questions from our amazing audience members, I want to ask, you know, look, we live in a world beset by pain. We also live in a world rife with beauty and opportunity. It's a crazy dichotomy, right? So in a world where it feels, all the feels, you know, and we show up, I got an ache here, something's going on. Something with your family, something with work, something with your health, something with your community, the state. I mean, you know, it can go on and on and on. With all of these different elements that may interfere and give all this noise to the beauty, what gives you both hope from a collective care and self-care standpoint that we can hold on to through times such as these?
I would say the only source of hope I have is the Creator. And what He has planned in this earth is already done. And He has already won. He already has the victory. We have nothing to worry about. There is more good than there is bad, even though the bad gets all the attention. There is good, and God is good, and God is in His people. And those are the people that are creating a space for us to be in community with each other. I mean, I surround myself with women who believe in me more than I believe in myself, who pour into me daily. And that's good, and that's of God. And that's what I choose to see, and that's who I choose to be in community with. And just like you had said earlier, just finding gratitude. I mean, on those bad days, I could sit and be grateful for every single thing, the breath, waking up, clean air, a car to drive. There's so many things to be grateful for. And if you just center yourself on gratitude, it'll just fill you. And that's what I choose to see in the world. I see good. I see God. Yeah.
I'm trying to be on that wavelength every day.
You have to be intentional about it. Yeah. It's not where the world wants to take you, but if you're intentional about connecting with God and seeing that and seeing His goodness, it's just a matter of being intentional, of finding that peace.
There's never been a storm that lasted forever. It ain't raining right now. This too shall pass. They seem like words, but it really is true. You know, I sit in some of the deepest, darkest pains of people's lives with them. And part of what gives me hope is the resilience that we have as human beings. I am a person who follow the logical trajectory of my life. I'm not sitting here talking with you, but I am. And I know that the same resilience that has been given to me and cultivated through me exists in every single human being. So what gives me hope is that there are some people who don't know it. And if there is a single person out there who doesn't know that they can overcome something, it's my job to make sure I'm here to tell them. And so I don't go looking for clients, they find me. And I know that if they found me, there's something in me that they need. And when I find somebody else, there's something in them that I need. So there is not a single relationship, no matter how fleeting. I will not remember. I can't see half y'all. I see half. I will forget the eyes in this room, right? But we are here connected in this moment for a reason. And we might not see the manifestation of that for years. Romel, I met him when he was an undergrad. He was assigned my business for his entrepreneurship class. We didn't know today was going to reunite us, but had I not been intentional and graceful when I knew him then, today would have been kind of awkward, right? So we have an opportunity every single day to live in grace, compassion, and curiosity. That's my hope, that people who have not yet built the capacity to do that, I'm going to stand strong and hold that for them, because I've been given that capacity, and that gives me hope.
Me too. Thank you. I mean, you're both transmitting the right kind of energy that we need, and I just want to thank you. We're not done yet, though, so don't go anywhere. We're actually going to transition rather unconventionally, but meaningfully and substantively into a different segment before we get to audience questions today. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, and we talk about collective community care. This comes in so many forms. And our guest, Julian Collins, is joining us to talk about how that looks for his work. Julian is part of the Urban Conflict community, but more importantly, he's a native Cincinnatian, and he serves as the Community Outreach Officer for Interact for Health. For those of you who don't know about Interact for Health, great, amazing work in Cincinnati. We are so happy to have you here. He identifies opportunities for community initiatives related to tobacco and smoking cessation, all right? One of those projects is called Quit Culture. And it's an initiative unfolding right here in Cincinnati, very important. And we didn't think we could talk about community care without talking about some of the things that get in the way of that, right? And we are going to pass the mic over to Julian to expand the scope of our conversation a little bit. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all for listening to me, and thank you, Urban Counseling, for letting us talk for a little bit. And definitely, I don't want to take up too much time because the conversation is too good. But as we're talking about Quit Culture is a movement that follows social media. We have billboards around the city that is really trying to change the conversation around tobacco amongst Black Americans in Cincinnati. We realize that as we talk about self-care here, that a lot of times the tobacco industry has kind of positioned themselves to be seen as a self-care tool that you can always use. This is something that you will have when you are having a bad day, a good day, celebration, upset, anything like that. Knowing that it really is a tobacco industry really trying to target the Black community. So with Quit Culture, we're really trying to make sure that we're changing the conversation and really celebrating people who are just even thinking about it. For a long time, we hear about tobacco cessation programs, and they're talking about they're all evidence-based. Usually that evidence is not based on us.
Speak.
It's not using us as the models, the tools and everything, nothing looks like us. So we really are working to just change the conversation and celebrating everybody on their journey, taking away the stigma of those who are using tobacco products, understanding that they were targeted. I mean, there are things everywhere you go that really are targeting Black Americans. If you're looking just even in communities, sometimes a tobacco ad, that's the color that you'll see in the community more than anything else. They'll be the brightest, boldest things out there. So with Quick Culture, we have, of course, our online presence through social media and stuff like that. We also have a video podcast called Smoke Break, where we're really just kind of talking about how tobacco use has really been a part of all aspects of Black American life. And we also have a 30-day Smoke Break Challenge, which really just kind of helps celebrate you anywhere on your journey, just to give it a try to quit, if that is something that you're interested in doing. We also have a free smoking cessation app through Tomorrow Health, which has been tailored for the Black community. So all images, all language that is being used to really help people as they are on their quit journey. Understanding that even if you smoke one cigarette less today, that's a success. So we definitely are here just to kind of pass out some information. We want to get people to learn more about our initiatives. So we have some information on the table here. Please, if you know somebody who is using tobacco products, please feel free to share. And if you hear about it, see it, hear it on the radio or something like that, please just keep in mind that we're out here wanting to keep the conversation going and celebrating people as they're trying to make a healthy change. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
First of all, I still love your jacket. Just want to say I love your jacket. Listen, tobacco use. Think about when smoking was really, when people smoked more. Who got breaks? Smokers. Non-smokers didn't get that 15-minute break. What did you find when you got that break? Community, like-minded, people willing to stand out in sub-zero temperatures, right? And smoking ain't nothing but a deep breath. Think about it.
Definitely.
Pull it in, hold, blow it out. So the tobacco company exploited our basic human needs, breath and community. And so when we talk about being able to say, I don't have to do what I've always done, we can still get those needs met.
Definitely.
Without the exploitation of the big money tobacco company in our community. So thank you for your work.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. So those of you who are interested in learning more about Quick Culture, Julian has brought some materials. Encourage you to take those, but also ask some questions. You have some questions about Quick Culture? Ask them. So now is the point in time where we are going to open it up to, I'm sure, what must be burning questions in the audience. And Meg is going to be coming around with a microphone for those of you who would like to ask something, and I think there might be people joining us virtually who have some questions as well. So don't be shy. State your name.
Good evening. I'm Jerome Waller. When I think about, well, you all have touched on the challenges, whether they're generational, institutional, spiritual challenges to health, to self-care. What are some quick tips you can give for folks who may be challenged, whether they're caregivers, single parents, or singles, that when they open their eyes in the morning and the battle starts, what are some quick tips that you all can offer for self-care?
My first one would be just to start the day with gratitude. That's how I start my day. As soon as I open my eyes, I just start listing the things that I'm grateful for. And that immediately puts me in a different mood and mindset. Instead of focusing on all the things that I have to accomplish for the day, I always start with gratitude, and it just puts things in perspective. There's always somebody out there that's struggling more than you are, and it's just a great way to just connect with God to start my day.
I diddle that so much. Gratitude literally shifts your biology.
Yes.
So it's not just a nice thing to do. You feel better. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, language matters. Words matter. The moment I shifted, I have to I get to, my whole life changed.
Yes.
So I don't have to see a client. I get to see a client. I don't have to feed my children breakfast. I get to feed my children breakfast. I didn't have to come here today. I got to come here today. And I live in the I get tos instead of I have tos. And it shifts everything that we do in that perspective. So it's an extension of gratitude. And the other thing when we talk about particularly caretakers, I think people should take some time to think about, do I want to be a caregiver or do I want to be a caretaker? I give care, but it's not my responsibility to take on your emotional baggage. And so we can give care in a very meaningful way. I think it's when people transition from being caregivers to caretakers that they feel overwhelmed. And so when we can, words matter. When we can just conceptualize that we have a lot to give, but there is a boundary where we don't have to take on the emotional weight of the things that those we're giving to have, it just changes how we engage with those that we care and love.
Yes.
So what do you do in this, oh, thank you. So what do you do in a situation where you consider yourself a positive person, but you are in environments with people that don't think so positive? And you know, when you say things to them to like turn their thoughts a little bit different, they say, you're just a goody two-shoe. And so how do you get a person to realize good is always going to take you further, and not have a person think about their environment? Because even if you live in a certain environment, there's good in all. And so if a person can't even see that there's good in all, how do you get them to recognize that? Because it is good in all. No matter what environment you're in, you can find something good about it. So how do you get a person to shift from that?
My first thought was, you don't. You don't, that ain't your job. But I hear the heart of the question. And I think part of it is, I give people what I think is helpful for them to have, and I alleviate my responsibility that I can change anything about them, because that's not it. So when you say there's good in all, instead of trying to convince them, instead I might just say, I just really appreciate the birds chirping today. I really appreciate that 5-gallon jug of water never seems to be empty when I need a drink. I appreciate that I ain't never took this trash out, but it's never overflowing. It's not my responsibility to get someone to come along, but sometimes people can't because they can't see it. It's a poverty of experience. So then I just maintain my environment. Part of the challenge that I think is maybe underneath the question you're asking is when you feel like you're one of the only ones, the force field of the negative seems like it's going to draw you in. Now that's hard, but sometimes I just maintain it. And what I have found is I have been in numerous relationships with people where I've tried to tell them things, but then I realized I can show you better than I can tell you. When people start saying, look at your skin, you look so happy, you seem lighter, all of a sudden I can tell you, but now you're asking me because I'm demonstrating what I'm trying to tell you. So keep shining your light and realize that in a darkness, things are drawn to the light. You ain't lost power and your flashlight came looking for you. It doesn't work like that. You seek it because it bears light. And so keep bearing your light. I know you're a light bearer. And they will come to you, and when they come, they're gonna want what you have. And then you ain't gotta try to convince them. You just show them what already is within you.
I agree.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is Tim Barr. Thank you so much for the conversation tonight. What's up, James? I just had a quick question. We've talked a lot about community and kind of being in the space of community, but my question is geared around young professionals and processing traumas. And how do you suggest we go about doing that? And I say that because we got a lot going on, trying to figure out career, trying to figure out relationships and different things like that, but the cost of a therapist sometimes can be a little too high. So how can we still maintain those safe spaces, but also allow processing of traumas for young professionals? Because we don't want to have kids and build relationships upon these traumas that we haven't yet unpacked. So, yes.
He said that you look okay.
Well, I always, I know there's a lot of things that we say we can't afford, but I think having a therapist, having a coach, those are things that we do to invest in ourselves, and it just requires a couple of nights not going out to dinner or hanging out with friends. It's investing in you. So I think there are ways for us to be able to afford that. And one thing that I admire about young people these days is, you know, we hear so many negative things about them, but one thing I have found that I've never met such young people who already have a relationship with God. They're not controlled by religion. They're tapping into their purposes earlier. I wish I had sense when I was 20. I was 40 before I even got some sense or, you know, tapped into a relationship with God. But I find so many young people are now more aware of just what that does for them and how that feeds their soul. So I don't buy people can't afford therapy. You can afford what you want to afford, pay for it. Don't go out to dinner a couple times. Don't cut out those Prime subscription, and you'll be able to afford whatever you want to be able to afford. It's investing in you. So find a way to invest in yourself.
I really appreciate the line of questioning. It at the heart of your question is why I have transformed how I offer services. So when Uber came out, Lyft, there was this idea that I'm trying to get to a place and I don't know how to get there. I don't have the tools to get there myself. I can't go buy this car, but we gonna hop in. How many of us can fit in here? And we gonna share the cost of this thing, and we gonna have a good conversation. So that's how I provide therapy. Get together with 4 of your friends, then come see me. Because it's not about, you know, what happens is I'm working individually, but I'm working with y'all in a group. Because at 3 o'clock in the morning when you stressed and you booking a session with me online, but you can't see me for 4 weeks, that's not helpful. But when you are sitting with 3 other people who are hearing the same language and are starting to learn where some of your wounds are, and y'all are cultivating a community geared towards healing, you can call them at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they can say, did you remember to take your deep breath? Have you checked in with your little? Like they can start to help you utilize the things that you learned in therapy. So part of it is using the same creativity that has gotten us through everything. 10 people piling into an apartment. We squeeze into that car. Oh, it's not a table enough for us? We'll pull up a chair. Pull up a chair in therapy. Realize that we have to, that we're in relationship all the time. So these relationships that we're in that are meaningful for us, it doesn't mean we gotta be on the outs. Therapy doesn't have to fix the relationship, but it goes, how can we get what we need collectively? And when you're talking about young professionals, you get each other. Am I still young? I'm gonna say, we get each other. It's hard to tell where I'm at in life. I don't know if I'm still young professional or not, but you know, when you are with people that you're living life with, why not get healed and healthy with those same people? I think the biggest lie that has been told is we gotta do it alone. And when we feel we gotta do it alone, we think we gotta pay for it alone, we think we gotta do all this stuff alone, but we realize that healing happens in relationship. So let's see how we can take that relationship into the various healing spaces.
I understand the gratitude, wellness for yourself. I'm wondering, because there are forces outside of ourself that we have no control over. Part of that is what makes us sick, is because we have no control. We're having less and less control. Thinking about voting rights, health equity, social justice. It just feels like we have no say. Our vote doesn't count. That's the big one. Like our words don't count. So I'm not going to bother to vote. I'm not going to bother to be engaged. I'm not going to bother to listen to the news because it's all bad and all scary. What do you how do you handle that conflict? Because what I'm trying to get to is we all citizens deserve better. We know we deserve better. How do we get it?
We've been doing that. You taking this, Chris? No, you're not. Okay. Thank you for the question. What arose for me is this emerging idea that I have. Is that it's easier to add something than to take it away. So my example is if you're making a big old pot of chili, and I don't mean Cincinnati chili, but that's okay. Remember, I'm Detroit. But the big old pot of chili, and you over salt it by mistake. What do? I ask people that question. And how they answer that question is very interesting. Some people say, scrap it and start over. That person is going to approach life differently than the person that's like, well, what I gotta add to balance out this salt, right? Because you can't go in there and take the salt out, it's already mixed in. The systems and things you're talking about, they're mixed in. And sometimes I think we focus so much on trying to pull out the grains of salt that we get exhausted and we get frustrated and we say it's not working. But instead we go, what do we need more of? Right? So if there are systems that are big and they're not changing right away, we go, what can I add? I heard we need voice. How do we add voice? And sometimes that's just letting a person in an individual personal conversation know, I hear you. Not only do I hear you, I'm gonna tell you what you just told me so you know I hear you. Can you imagine individual conversation where that's happening? All of a sudden, whole communities of people don't feel unheard. They might still be unheard by the system, but they don't feel completely unheard because we're engaging in this very relational way. And so when we identify the need, one of the things is, where can I personally contribute to this need in a personal relationship? How can I give things to myself? And so again, this doesn't take away the fact that we dumped a half a cup of salt into the chili, oops. But it means now I can add more things to it that's gonna balance that out. And so I wish there was a simple, easy answer, right? That we could just snap our fingers, but then I say, when we recognize the need, what are ways that we can say, here is my individual contribution, and how I can collectively get with people to do that? And so again, voters' rights, we can be activists, we can do that, but we can also just recognize in our interpersonal relationships, have I given a person voice, choice, and control? Start with your kids. Are you just telling them what to do all the time? Or are you allowing them space to build the muscle to go, I'm gonna make an informed decision, and I get to ask you why? And so those are just small things I think contribute to some of the larger global problems or challenges that we see. Don't know if that answered the question. For the record, that was a really big question. Crystal? I hear you.
I think we have time for probably 2 more big questions. Or not.
Hi, I'm Bee. I remember, Crystal, at the beginning you were speaking about your external sources of kind of filling up. My background is very much related to I need to look at myself more, and I thought when you were speaking about nature walks and things you do externally, that there was no mirror involved. And for your line of work, I understand why. But something that both of you spoke to was how you fill up with external and readily available sources. And so more than likely, we are not near to full. We're probably all maybe half empty or half full and kind of near E on some weeks and sometimes in our lives. And so my question is, when your bigger sources of filling you up, such as a full excursion outside or things that, do more than the birds do, when those change and maybe you've moved or you're in a different life space, how would you recommend going and finding those again? Not the small ones, but the bigger sources.
My goal is always to serve, to get to the point where I'm serving from my overflow. I don't want my tank to run empty to where I'm serving from an empty tank. I should be serving, you should be getting my overflow. I should always be full. So it's always my goal is to just stay full, and I do that in many ways, It's not always the nature, but it's just the time I take for myself for self-care. It's my relationship with God. It's my relationship with my community. All those things, me sharing my story, my testimony, that fills me up on a daily basis when I have that opportunity. I should be serving you from my overflow. You should take nothing from me. And I tell people sometimes also, when people feel like they're stuck, that sometimes we're not stuck, we're just full. And when you're full, you have to release that so you're able to receive more. So when you're full, you might need to go teach a class, you might need to volunteer, you need to do something to release all the stuff that has been poured into you. So we're not always stuck, we're just full. And we just need to release it. Yeah.
That's good stuff. I agree, and I will also say, and sometimes when you ain't got it, say you ain't got it. It's that simple. There is a narrative we running on where we gotta fake it till I make it. No, you don't. Who told you that? Right?
Rihanna.
So part of it is, what you say? You know, so I think just being honest, right? And you would be amazed at how what seemingly small things can really give you a boost. If you're like me, you got thousands of pictures on your phone. So sometimes when I just go and I look at pictures of my loved ones, go back. Listen, I love me some Aruba. I'm probably not going in the near future, but those pictures take me back, right? Alexa, play ocean sounds. And then I just listen, right? Our five senses. Your brain does not know the difference between history, reality, and imagination. That's why you wake up sweating when you've been chased by something in your dream, but you was laying there, right? So sometimes we have to close our eyes and go to the place we need to go for a moment and get that feel. Go on that nature hike in your mind because it'll mobilize your body. And laughter and fun are some of the most understated forms of self-care in our culture. If you don't have you a good, wholesome YouTube video you can turn to on the drop of a dime to laugh, you're doing it wrong. Okay, Phil Collins Deer, D-E-E-R, you're welcome. So add that to your arsenal. It is a 12-second video that when I just need, and I cannot not laugh anytime I see it, right? But we have those things we can turn to in that moment, that joy, that laughter, right? That is part of our inheritance. And we have been convinced otherwise. And y'all know it's a good old biblical story. You will hand over your inheritance. Ain't nobody got to steal it from you. And joy is one of those inheritances that we give away so freely. And so, have you laughed today? If you haven't, that can fill you up. Literally, it gives you dopamine, a chemical that makes you feel better. So laughter is part of that thing that we can fill up until we get that plane ticket to Aruba or Montana. Did you say Montana? Okay, Montana.
One more question.
Based upon what you just said. And to put a little plug in for my restaurant. On Friday nights, we do this thing called Adult Game Night. And I just love it because people come out, adults come out, and we play games. You know, whether it's, well, last Friday we played Family Feud, and it was what is it called? Avondale against Millville, and they was all gangsters. You know, and it was just so neat. But it was the laughter in the room. You know, that's what everybody asks me, why do you do this? Sometimes people don't show up. The people that do show up, they are laughing. And it's infectious. And it's like the best feeling. I look forward to Fridays because I can laugh.
So where am I going Friday?
That would be 6305 Vine Street.
All right.
Scoop Dogs and Spirits.
Thank you.
Scoop Dogs and Spirits, you said?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay.
I have a liquor license, and spirits.
And if you can't access it for yourself, also Google baby laughing. Seriously, it's a place to start. Baby laughter is the most contagious, it's pure. And so when we can't access it for ourselves, just tap into that video that allows you to hear that sound and be able to move where you can't help it. Next thing you know, your belly is hurting and you're laughing. That is also self-care.
So this has been self-care. I mean, this is all very full circle, 180 degrees. Just sharing space with you is self-care. And I want to thank you, LaShonda Sugg. I want to thank you, Crystal Grace, for gracing us with your wisdom and your insights and your wonderfulness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we good? Yeah. Okay, good. Oh, great. Usually when, look, here's a little inside scoop. When JP's signaling, I'm like, all right, what's going on, JP? He is the maestro behind the scenes here. So we want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. You know, again, this is the last salon for the year. And we're all hopefully entering a season of rest, self-care, collective care, and we hope that you bring into the new year everything that is love and everything that helps you care for yourself. So with that, want to thank all of our incredible partners this evening. Of course, our friends at the Mercantile Library who host us in this incredible space every second Monday.
Yes.
So thank you to John Faraday, Amy Hunter. Also want to thank AfroSheen, who provides all of the technology for Urban Consulate. And also want to thank Sulan No, our incredible communications guru. Of course, Megan Trishler. We love you! And the enduring and very real philanthropic support of the Hale Foundation. So make sure you're following Urban Consulate online. Look, I got to get the little plugs. I'm sorry. I got to do this. Make sure you're following us at urbanconsulate.com. You can click on all of our cities and see future events. Join us online. Join us in person. And we have conversations happening all over the country. You know, we were in Detroit and Philadelphia, Memphis. So check us out online and make sure you are dialed into our latest conversations. And with that, we wish you an incredible evening. Good night. Thank you.